It's Nolan. Now, before we get started, make sure y'all hitting that like button. Make sure y'all sharing it on your respective platforms. Let somebody know what we're doing today. Now, let's get into the show. There's a reason rappers can turn any story into a hit track. Just like there's a reason Morgan & Morgan is America's largest injury law firm with over 1,000 attorneys and more than 100 offices nationwide. If you've been seriously injured in an accident, your case could be worth millions. But the truth is, a lot of people either don't file at all or get taken advantage of by insurance companies. When you hire Morgan & Morgan, it's like hiring a legal army that has your back. If you're injured because of someone else's negligence, you deserve to be paid. No shortcuts, no lowball offers. In fact, they've secured some major verdicts in the past. For example, in Florida, they got a victim who was in a life-altering car crash, $12 million. 34 times the highest insurance offer. They got another victim in Philadelphia, $26 million. 40 times the highest insurance offer. Not all law firms are created equal. Morgan & Morgan is the biggest for a reason. They will fight for the biggest award possible and have won a lot. So if you're ever injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Their fee is free unless you win. That's right, no upfront costs. They only get paid if you get paid. You can start your claim now by clicking the link in the description or by scanning the QR code on screen from your phone's camera. Again, if you find yourself injured, you can check out Morgan & Morgan. Don't say I never told you nothing, man. What's going on, beautiful people? It's the kid J Nolan here. Welcome back to another episode of Inside the Industry, your number one source for music, entertainment, commentary, and breakdowns. Hope everybody's doing well out there this evening. In this video, we're going to be getting into the Like That lawsuit. It has finally come to an end, and it is also getting dismissed. Okay? Now, y'all know we covered some of the happenings with this situation right here on this channel. When it broke, when the news broke, I got into it, got into the weeds of the situation. Originally, Rodney O, his song Everlasting Bass was sampled for Like That. It plays all throughout the entire track. Initially, he had opened up this lawsuit against Metro Boomin, Future, and Kendrick Lamar. They were all labeled as defendants. As of the rest of the litigation, at some point, they were all removed from the situation, okay? It then began an issue between Rodney O and the Barry White estate, okay? So the Barry White estate came in and they say, hey, Everlasting Bass pulls interpolation cues from Barry White's Just Wanna Love You Better Baby or something like that. I believe that's the name of the song. So they came in and said, no, homie, we feel like you took cues from this record, therefore you must pay up. And it got on their radar after Kanye did his remix to Like That, right? Because Kanye was like, I didn't sample your song, Everlasting Bass. I sampled the Barry White version. Funny enough, the Kanye West version was never officially released. It was never put on streaming, but it was enough to ruffle feathers and make this a very contentious situation. Rodney O, he had a rights manager by the name of Nicole Key. Nicole Key was representing him. They were pro se. They originally had a lawyer that was helping them. Unfortunately, they claimed that the lawyers were not doing everything that they could to secure the safety and the ownership of Rodney O's original creation, because that's what he stands by, is that Everlasting Bass is an original creation that he produced himself with no samples. We had a whole conversation with Miss Nicole Key right here on this very channel. That interview was also sourced and referenced in the litigation process. Okay? Now, it's been some time since we've talked about this case. Rodney O has since removed himself as plaintiff and left Nicole Key to fend for herself against the Barry White estate. Crazy stuff. So at some point he said, hey, we can't go no further. Okay? So he actually cut ties with Miss Nicole Key throughout the length of this entire debacle. Okay? At one point, there were some talks of possible settlement. I don't know what happened behind the scenes, but Rodney O did set forth a motion to dismiss. And as of this week, it is now dismissed. Now, there is an opportunity to appeal that I noticed. Will it be appealed? I don't think so, but we shall see what the future holds in 2026. Let's get into what's current. So here we are with the paperwork that was filed on December 5th. That is yesterday. This is the memorandum opinion and order given from the judge, Miss Denise Cody. Okay? In the related action, 24 CV 7509, which is, I believe, the case number, the Barry White Family Trust sued Rodney Oliver and Joe Cooley for copyright infringement, alleging that their 1986 song, Everlasting Bass, copied the introductory riff of the 1973 Barry White song, I'm Gonna Love You Just a Little More, Babe. That's the actual title. Nicole Key, Oliver's former music rights manager and agent, filed a motion to intervene in the related action. That motion was denied in an opinion of April 9th, 2025, but Key continued to prepare pro se filings on behalf of Oliver. An opinion of October 29th described misconduct by Oliver in the related action and noted Key's involvement. An order of November 12th discontinued the related action in light of a settlement between the remaining parties. Key and Oliver filed the instant action on April 29th against Barry White Family Trust and other defendants, most of whom were involved in performing or distributing the 2024 song Like That. The complaint principally alleges that 1, Like That infringed Everlasting Bass, and 2, the related action was a manufactured infringement claim. Although the complaint describes Oliver as the creator and copyright owner of Everlasting Bass, it also incorporates a purported contract between Oliver and Key dated April 24, 2025 that appeared to give Key equal ownership of the song, okay? So Miss Nicole Key went into business with Rodney O, and they signed some sort of paperwork which would have given her, as rights manager, control and ownership of the song Everlasting Bass, because she's supposed to go out and find money and opportunities for the song, and she would have the right to sign off on those types of things, right? The document states, however, that Rodney David Oliver shall have the exclusive right to terminate this co-ownership agreement at any time by providing 30 days written notice to Nicole Key. After obtaining legal representation, Oliver filed a notice of voluntary dismissal on September 9th, leaving Key as the only remaining plaintiff. On November 10th, Oliver filed a motion to intervene as a defendant. Attached to that motion is a draft motion seeking to dismiss this action inter alia on the basis that Key lacks standing. On November 11th, Barry White Family Trust filed a motion to dismiss. Barry White Family Trust also argues, among other things, that Key lacks standing. Attached to Barry White Family Trust motion is a declaration by Oliver in which he states that on September 2nd, he terminated Key's rights under the April 24th agreement and generally terminated her representation of him. Okay? So on November 11th, he officially cut ties with Miss Nicole Key and basically cut her out of his business. An order of November 12th set a deadline of November 20th for Key to file any opposition to Oliver's motion to intervene and the standing arguments in Barry White Family Trust motion to dismiss. Key submitted filings on November 14th, November 20th, and November 24th. Oliver and Barry White Family Trust filed replies on November 25th. Barry White Family Trust also filed a motion for sanctions on December 4th. So they wanted her to be punished by the courts. A Rule 12b1 motion challenging subject matter jurisdiction may be either facial, i.e. based solely on the allegations of the complaint and exhibits attached to it, or fact-based, i.e. based on evidence beyond the pleadings. Thus, in considering a motion to dismiss for lack of standing, a court may consider affidavits and other materials beyond the pleadings, although it cannot rely on conclusory or hearsay statements contained in the affidavits. Article 3 of the U.S. Constitution requires a plaintiff to have a personal stake in the case, in other words, standing. A plaintiff must show 1, an injury in fact defined as an invasion of a legally protected interest that is concrete, particularized, and actual or imminent. 2, a sufficient causal connection between the injury and the conduct complained of. And 3, a likelihood that the injury will be redressed by a favorable decision. Concrete injuries are physical, monetary, or cognizable intangible harms traditionally recognized as providing a basis for a lawsuit in American courts. Key lacks standing to bring this action. Key asserts standing based on her alleged 50% ownership of Everlasting Base created by the April 24th agreement. But the April 24th agreement expressly provides that it may be terminated by Oliver on 30 days' notice, and Oliver has now exercised that termination right. It is thus unnecessary to determine whether the April 24th agreement was a valid contract because Key lacks ownership of Everlasting Base either way, nor is there any other basis for Key to have standing. So they're saying she has no standing to be a part of this, and now she's left standing alone, unfortunately. Key's opposition papers appear to have been generated by artificial intelligence software. Ah, shit. Don't go out like that. And are difficult to understand. It is clear, however, that Key does not offer any basis to find that she has standing apart from the April 24th agreement. She also does not dispute that Oliver has sought to revoke the April 24th agreement. Key instead claims that Oliver was unable to exercise the termination clause in the April 24th agreement, but her argument on this point is unclear and self-contradictory. Read generously, Key appears to claim that the termination clause cannot be exercised when Oliver is under the influence of a label, publisher, or attorney acting adversely to his interests. That's tough. Because she feels like she had his best interests at hand. Rodney decided to go in another direction, and she's still fighting to stay in it. To begin with, there is no evidence that Oliver has been under undue influence since parting ways with Key. Moreover, the April 24th agreement gives Oliver an unqualified right to terminate Key's ownership. Indeed, Barry White Family Trust has submitted evidence that this was Key's understanding of the agreement as well. In an April 28th text message to Oliver about the April 24th agreement, Key stated, "You are the one that can terminate at any time to avoid me having to write on. And everything will remain as is, just in the court perception, it changes." In a September 29th text message to Oliver, Key stated, "Rodney, you had the ability to take the masters back the whole time. Accordingly, it is hereby ordered that Barry White Family Trust November 11 motion to dismiss is granted. The clerk of court shall close the case. It is further ordered that Barry White Family Trust December 4th motion for sanctions is denied." Okay, so Miss Key will be able to avoid being sanctioned by the courts, which would inevitably cause fees and payments. So this thing has been closed out. Now, is this the end of the Like That saga as far as court is concerned? I don't know. Does Rodney O still want financial benefits from the Like That record, which clearly samples his song? Or has he conceded that he used pieces of the Barry White record and they got to figure out how to share in that in the royalties? I don't know. That could be the simple solution, is for both parties to be clued in and credited and paid, but I don't know where they go from here. Now, what I find interesting here is this motion to intervene that Rodney O sent to the courts, which is basically what moved this dismissal forward, because basically he got left out, or he got removed as a plaintiff. Nicole was on her own. He came to move in and to try to get this thing dismissed because Rodney and Nicole fell out, and he basically submitted paperwork letting it be known that he feels he was being misled by Nicole Key, that she was working against him in so many words, and that he has now come to his senses and no longer wants to pursue any further issues, right? But they talk about a payment that was supposed to be sent his way that he didn't have access to because of the lawsuit. Now, I'm going to read some of this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I just want to kind of get into what happened here, all right? So Rodney Oliver's memorandum of points and authorities in support of his motion to intervene. The court is well acquainted with the history of this litigation and the litigation Rodney Oliver, PKA Rodney O, intervener defendant, is defending brought by the Barry White Trust for copyright infringement against Oliver, the Barry White Family Trust, etc. In defending the first action as fully demonstrated in the declaration of Rodney Oliver and November 10th, 2025 submitted herewith, Oliver made the admittedly regrettable in hindsight choice of letting his rights manager, plaintiff Nicole Key, control the case. Oliver trusted Key in her role as his fiduciary and agent to properly manage the case and handle the court system in a manner compliant with the court's rules. All right? Now remember, she was putting all the filings in and basically acting on behalf of him, although she's not a lawyer or an attorney. Not surprisingly, plaintiff in the first action moved for sanctions against Oliver based in large part on the troubling conduct Key engaged in while still Oliver's agent. The court, while denying sanctions, admonished Oliver not to engage in any further misconduct. First action, docket number 182. He says Nicole Key is a vexatious litigant powered by ChatGPT. Jesus, who will not go away without the intervention of the court. Key's recent self-styled indecipherable motion for judicial notice of agency termination and for equitable relief to halt obstructionist conduct, attached as Exhibit A to the declaration of Kenneth D. Frunlich, dated November 10th, submitted herewith, is based entirely on a fraudulent and forged document which Key alleges Oliver's associate, Antarine Jackson, drafted, giving Key 20% of Oliver's interest in his music publishing, including Everlasting Bass. Whoa! This is the first time Key has ever claimed 20% of Oliver's money. In the past, it has always been an alleged oral agreement for 10%. This is one example of the ever-shifting, frivolous nature of Key's claims here. Her inconsistency with what she claims to be owed speaks volumes about her motives here. So she allegedly tried to go from 10 to 20% on his earnings as an agent, not as a manager. Although Key represents that Key's motion was filed via ECF, no corresponding entry appears on the court's PACER docket and no docket number has been assigned. It is simply another frivolous motion filed by Key in both actions. As the declaration of Antarine Jackson dated November 7th and the declaration of Rodney Oliver dated November 10th make clear, the alleged 20% agreement which Key has filed in this case is a fraud. Oliver never saw this document. His signature is a forgery. So he never signed it, but on the document, she allegedly put his signature on that motherfucker. And Jackson has never seen the document, let alone ever worked with Oliver on any aspect of his deal with Key. Basing the Key motion on a forged document and Key's continuing abuse of the court's process here and in the first action is a basis to dismiss Key's complaint here. Moreover, the master purchase agreement was a sham agreement created by Key to circumvent the court's denial of Key's motion to intervene. In any event, this lawsuit represents the detritus left by Key's attempts to inject herself in these matters, even though she has been terminated as Oliver's agent and any agreement from which she derives any rights has been terminated. Her insinuation into this case is both officious and meddlesome. It is also bad faith and likely sanctionable. So even Rodney O was low-key like, hey, she might have to pay some sanctions for this shit. Accordingly, Oliver intervenes and requests permission to file the motion to dismiss, attached as Exhibit C to the Fruin-Link Declaration. Relevant facts. Oliver is a prolific songwriter and performer whose catalog includes the musical composition and sound recording called Everlasting Bass. Oliver appointed Lady Key Management as his rights manager under an oral agreement that it would be paid 10% of what he made from his music and sound recording licensing. The agreement had no term and was therefore terminable by Oliver at any time. Key was his disclosed agent to third parties, charged with the fiduciary duty to act on his behalf and only consistent with his wishes as her principal and owner of the rights she was representing. Okay? Key, on behalf of Oliver, negotiated licenses to Epic Records for the use of Oliver's song and recording of Everlasting Bass in a song titled Like That. Okay? So the song was not put out without their knowledge. They had literally already negotiated the situation, but once Kendrick Lamar appeared on the record, they decided to try to get more money. Why? I don't know. Oliver makes a publishing deal with Sony Music Publishing based on the success of the Kendrick Lamar track Like That. When Like That was released to great success, Key saw a music publishing deal based on the expected earnings of Everlasting Bass, largely due to its inclusion in Like That. Oliver entered into a 7-figure deal from Sony Music Publishing. SMP was directed to pay Lady Key Management $80,000 as her agreed 10% share of the upfront monies paid to Oliver by SMP. So as she was entitled to 10%, which equaled $80,000, sounds to me like Rodney was supposed to get $8 million. The deal referenced in the first action and a significant portion of the considerable payable by SMP was withheld pending the determination in the first action. So this is what it sounds like to me, is that he was supposed to get $8 million. And of course, that's not $8 million all in, you know what I mean? Gonna be some reductions there, but $8 million on paper. And because this lawsuit or these series of lawsuits were active, Sony Music Publishing was withholding the money. So now that Rodney has found new legal representation, he's cut Miss Nicole Key out of his team, completely severed ties. It sounds to me like Sony Music Publishing has finally released that money, or is in the process of releasing that money to Rodney O. So everybody at this point is made whole, which is why it looks like the Barry White Trust and Rodney O are like, we good, we out of here. Wow, what a fucking ending. But Rodney's got more to say. He says Miss Key took control of Oliver's defense in the first action and appointed a law firm to represent Oliver in the case. On March 5th, Key turned on Oliver's lawyers and sought to intervene herself in the first action. Remember, we had that conversation. She alleged that the lawyers were being influenced by Sony and Epic, right? She felt like they were trying to get Rodney to stand down. And she said, nah, it ain't finna go that way. I can get us this money. And it's been a year of torment for all parties since then. Shortly thereafter, the law firm moved to withdraw, leaving Oliver as a pro se defendant, being advised behind the scenes by his trusted agent, Key. In granting the motion to withdraw and denying Key's motion to intervene, the court observed the concerning possibility that Key has attempted to step into the role that would properly be played by an attorney to the defendants. The court warned that Key is not authorized to practice law and may not undertake the responsibility of an attorney. Despite the denial of Key's motion to intervene, Key continued to assist Oliver as a lawyer would do in filing his pro se documents, and Oliver blindly trusted her to do the right thing, which he deeply regrets now. On April 29th, Key exploited Oliver's trust and improperly influenced him into asserting counterclaims against the Barry White Trust that lacked a factual foundation and were driven by Key's own self-serving motives rather than Oliver's independent judgment. These allegations, as they pertain to the Barry White Trust, mirror the complaint Key filed here. In its allegations against Barry White Trust, and in the context of this case, their counsel, Dorothy Weber, Key was the sole draftsman of the affirmative defenses and counterclaims in the first action and the sole drafter and filer of this action. Even after Oliver advised Key to withdraw this action, she refused, which he also submitted in his sworn declaration. Key's steerage of Oliver's defense was so unhinged that, as the court aptly put it in denying sanctions, a default judgment may have been entered against Oliver if his course of conduct had continued. Okay? So Rodney was at risk of being punished by the courts had he continued to follow Nicole's advice. Key manufactures standing and files a new lawsuit in her own name. Undeterred by the court's order denying her intervention in the first action, Key concocted a way for her to have standing to bring a new case in her own name based on a terminable assignment of one half of the copyright in Oliver's master recording of Everlasting Bass. This document, newly minted by Key, assigned such rights to Key without any valid consideration whatsoever. Excuse me. Even as a co-owner of the copyright in the Everlasting Bass master recording, Oliver had the absolute right to license the master subject only to a duty to account to Key and vice versa. As Oliver now knows, he was defrauded into entering into this document because, contrary to the position Key is taking in this case, Key promised he could undo the assignment in toto and remove her from this case. Plus, there was no consideration for the assignment, which makes it likely voidable. Accordingly, the purported co-ownership agreement is void or unenforceable due to its lack of mutual obligations. Because he relied on Key as his fiduciary at the time, Oliver did not really understand that Key might later act against his wishes as his agent and as his former agent and take the position that despite his termination of the assignment and Oliver's decision not to pursue this action now, Key could still assert rights in his business matters, including this lawsuit. In fact, Key told Oliver many times that he could terminate Key's ownership at any time, and Key represented in at least one text message that Oliver's the one that could terminate at any time. We just talked about that a few minutes ago. Oliver believed that this assignment was temporary and entirely terminable by him upon 30 days' notice, after which Key would have no rights whatsoever in his master, including a right to maintain a lawsuit in her own name, especially since, as turned out to be the case, Oliver chose not to prosecute this lawsuit at this time. Armed with his conditional assignment, this conditional assignment on April 29th, Oliver, at Key's direction, and with her drafting and Key as plaintiffs, filed this largely indecipherable pleading for what appears to be copyright infringement and a laundry list of torts against the participants in Like That, including the artists and the record labels. Remember, it was Kendrick, Metro, Future, Epic, Universal, all of them were originally being litigated against. And the Barry White Trust, without any evidence whatsoever that it was not involved in Like That, as well as two of the lawyers representing some of those parties. Second action, docket number 1, the case was not something that Oliver would have filed at this time in the backdrop of the first action, particularly those claims against Barry White Estate and its counsel. It continues to be Oliver's sole decision as principal whether to file the case and whether to withdraw it or continue it. The claims against the Barry White Estate mirrored those in counterclaims Key filed for Oliver in the first action, and as to the Barry White Estate and its counsel, and Oliver, now free from Key's wrong-headed advice, sees there is no known evidence to support the counterclaims in the first action or the claims asserted against the Barry White Estate here. So at this point, he then hires Freundlich Law. On or about August 19th, he retained Freundlich Law APC as his counsel, and shortly thereafter, Oliver formally terminated Key as his agent, terminated the master assignment, dismissed himself as a plaintiff in this case without prejudice, and proceeded in good faith to meet and confer and conduct the litigation in the first action. Oliver asked Key numerous times to dismiss her case here like he did, but she has steadfastly refused to do so, preferring to continue to harass and intervene in Oliver's business and to wreak general havoc on the group of attorneys involved in this case. Most recently, Key has escalated matters by filing incomprehensible motions and letters with the court, with the Key motion being the most egregious, being based on a forgery and in an email threatening Oliver and his counsel. Wow. Key has no standing to bring this case because the assignment on which she bases her claim of standing is void for lack of consideration. Moreover, to the extent it is enforceable, Oliver terminated her ownership of any copyrights from which Key's rights derive, and Key has been instructed by her now former principal to cease and desist from prosecuting this case. Furthermore, given Key's persistent abuse of the court's process here and in the first action, the court should simply strike the complaint from the docket. Oliver has been and continues to be harmed by Key's unconscionable conduct in pursuing these baseless claims for which she has no standing. Oliver therefore moves to dismiss Key's case with prejudice. This shit crazy, man. So yeah, there was also a lawsuit against Joe Cooley, who is Rodney O's original partner from Everlasting Bass. That has since been settled out of court. So it sounds like everything is in much better standing. Sounds to me like Rodney's been able to get access to that publishing money, that $8 million deal. They also said that Nicole had received the $80,000, the 10% off of that, and still pursued this stuff. Man, what a fucking year it's been, man. These lawsuits have been jumping off the fucking page. Everybody been trying to get a little something here and there. Street dreams are made of these. Who am I to disagree? Everybody's looking for something. But god damn, it's been crazy. Let me know what y'all think of all this down below in the comments. Be sure to like and share this video. If this is your first time seeing me on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, become an insider. I still am baffled at the fact that the interview I did with Nicole actually made it into a reference in this whole legal battle. It still baffles me that videos I've done have been referenced in Drake's legal battle with the fucking Ameriguns guy, photographer. Wow. But I'll catch y'all later, man. More content on the way. More momentous occasions to come. I'll see y'all in a bit. Yeah, family over fame in this bitch, yeah. The glory of living righteous is setting in. My street knowledge and education's a perfect blend. Young mogul, independent, I've been setting trends. The first one from my family to be faithfully wed. Fuck niggas and the horses that they riding on. I see this shit from all angles like a polygon. I'll never politic and the drama be piling on. Father and great son acknowledged like I'm Bobby Bonds. Conversation with my lady about the paper route. 5-6 bank accounts every day I make it count. They down talking my commentary for hating now. Well, I can take it cause I'm bodying your favorite now, please. I can do this shit in my sleep. I been writing for these niggas, y'all read it and weep. I been fighting these niggas if you speak on the street. I'll turn your birthday party into New Year's Eve. Don't let me take it there. We ain't playing fair. This the ATL, Southside nigga moving furniture like Wayfair. Life on hold, no insurance for your healthcare. Lifeline gone, so you wanna be a millionaire? Well, let me tell you about this world I built. The women I dodged, the niggas that I read for filth. The sympathy calls, consulting for the stacks I built. I had